1957, at Camp Alpine Lake in Colorado, a girl named Hope made a call from a pay phone after finding the number carved in ice in her strange dreams. When she tried to find out who was on the other end, she only heard static that became high-pitched and loud, forcing her to hang up. The story then moves to 1982 in Denver, where Finney is seen beating up a new boy at school until his sister Gwen yells at him to stop. After the fight, Gwen asks what happened, and Finney says the other boy started it. It's revealed that Finney has a formidable reputation because 4 years earlier, he defeated a serial killer known as the Grabber. A boy named Ernie, whose brother was one of the Grabber's victims, invites Gwen to a concert and she agrees. That night, Finney cannot sleep and goes outside to smoke, remembering the traumatic events with the Grabber and imagining him standing in the backyard. Gwen tries to comfort her brother, but Finney refuses to talk about it. Meanwhile, at Camp Alpine Lake, a boy named Felix arrives with other children. Sue and the Grabber starts chasing him through the forest, catches him after Felix falls, and kills him by cutting him open with a knife before dumping his body in the lake. Before dying, Felix scratches the letter W into the ice. At that moment, Gwen wakes up, revealing the events with Felix were part of her nightmare. She hears a phone ringing, opens the front door, thinking she sees something strange across the street, but Finney finds her and tells her she's been sleepwalking again. Gwen tries to explain her bad dream, but Finney tells her to go back to bed. The next day, Gwen researches supernatural events in the school library where some girls tease her and call her a witch. Ernie comes to give Gwen her concert ticket and tells her it's cool that she believes in spooky things, showing her tarot cards his grandmother sells. Ernie knows Gwen's dreams helped find the bodies of the Grabber's victims, and though Gwen feels uncomfortable, Ernie tells her he likes weird things. After school, Finney goes to a store and hears a pay phone ringing. He answers it saying he can't help before hanging up, only to discover the phone is actually out of order. Back at Camp Alpine Lake, a boy named Kel enjoys the activities and makes friends. One night, the Grabber chases him in the forest, quickly catches him, chops his body up with an axe, burns some parts while throwing the rest into the lake. After dying, Kel's ghost scratches the letter B into the ice next to the W from before. The sound of a ringing phone wakes Gwen, and she realizes it was another nightmare. Going outside, she's shocked to find Kel's body in the yard. Scared and confused, Gwen rides her bicycle to the Grabber's old house, crawls through a small window into the cellar where there's a black phone. She answers the ringing telephone and hears Hope's voice from the past, realizing her mother Hope had the same kind of dreams, though in Hope's case the children carved numbers instead of letters. Gwen wants to ask more questions, but the call cuts off. When she turns around, she's startled by the ghost of the Grabber's brother who tells her she shouldn't be there. The cellar door opens, the phone rings again, and someone comes down the stairs, but it's only Finney looking for Gwen. Gwen tells Finney about talking to Hope, their mother when she was young, but Finney thinks it was just a dream and spits on the ground before they leave the cellar. The next day, Gwen finds a pamphlet for Camp Alpine Lake and tells Finney they should become counselors to investigate, but Finney refuses. Their dad Terrence overhears them and recognizes Camp Alpine Lake as where his wife used to work, saying the camp closed in 1958 and he doesn't like Christian camps. Later, Gwen convinces Ernie to go with her, and Finney decides to come along to protect her. After several hours of driving, they reach a snowy area with many car accidents along the way. The snow gets so bad they cannot see the road, so Finney tells Ernie to stop, and Ernie volunteers to run ahead so the car can safely follow. A man named Mustang finds them and guides them to the camp with a flashlight. At camp, they meet Mustang's uncle Armando, the camp manager, who tells them no children will be coming until after the storm passes. Finney notices a pay phone outside. Gwen goes to the girls' cabin while Finney and Ernie go to the boys' dormitory, both empty as no one else has arrived. That night, Gwen falls asleep and has another nightmare about a boy named Spike from the camp band being killed, adding the letter H to the ice before his face splits in half. Gwen wakes suddenly and hears scraping noises under the next bed. Outside, Finney hears the pay phone ringing and walks toward it, but the ringing stops. When he walks away, it starts again. This time he answers, says he can't help, and hangs up. The phone rings again, and as he tries to leave, the ringing gets louder. He answers again and hears static, then the Grabber's voice saying hello. Finney hangs up immediately, but the booth door closes and won't open. The phone rings again. Finney kicks the booth, making the handset fall, and the Grabber's voice tells him hell is not fire but ice because nothing burns like the cold. In the bedroom, Gwen checks under the neighboring bed and is horrified to find Felix. She backs away but is touched by Cal, whose hand burns her arm. Terrified, she tries to escape as the boys' ghosts come closer. She sees Spike at the window trying to open it when someone appears behind him and breaks the window, causing it to fall and slice Spike's face in half. As Gwen screams, the phone booth door finally opens for Finney. Finney runs to the girl's bedroom and wakes Gwen up. She's having a breakdown saying she feels like she's going crazy. Finney comforts her, and after treating the burn mark, Gwen refuses to sleep alone and joins Ernie in his bed. She still cannot sleep and prays to Jesus for protection. Ernie overhears her praying, and they talk about religion, bonding over coming from religious families. Gwen opens up about her mother's strange dreams that drove her crazy, admitting she's scared the same will happen to her. Ernie comforts her and they almost kiss, but Finney interrupts and tells them to sleep. The next morning, Finney is upset with Gwen for telling Ernie everything, but Gwen says they need help and shows him the burn mark as proof. During breakfast, Armando scolds Gwen for sleeping in the boys' dorm and questions why they really came, not believing they want to be counselors. Gwen and Finney show him a picture of Hope, and Armando immediately recognizes her from when she was a counselor, saddened to learn she died 7 years ago. Armando tells them to call their families using the office phone, and when Finney mentions the pay phone outside, Armando explains it hasn't worked in over 10 years. After Armando leaves, Finney tells Gwen and Ernie he heard the grabber's voice on the pay phone the previous night. Suddenly, the pay phone starts ringing again. Finney runs to answer it, hears static, then a boy's voice saying it's cold and they aren't supposed to be there. The three ghosts of the boys appear around the phone booth. The boy on the phone asks for help but cannot give many details because they don't remember much. The ghosts pound on the booth and only disappear when Finney hangs up. Later, Gwen calls Terrence to let him know they're safe, but he's worried about the blizzard and calls a friend to borrow a snowplow. Meanwhile, Gwen and Ernie meet camp staff members Kenneth and Barbara, asking if there are books about the camp's history. Kenneth kindly explains they only have brochures, but Barbara is rude and judgmental, criticizing Gwen for sleeping in the boys' dorm and using bad language. When they ask about the 3 boys who died years ago, Barbara insists good Christian people don't discuss such horrible matters. Gwen and Barbara argue, so Kenneth asks them to leave. That night, Gwen dreams about Hope answering the phone and talks to the ghosts of the 3 dead boys who beg for help. In the dream, Felix's ghost is near the forest and Gwen tries to follow him. Red feathers start falling from the sky, Felix disappears and Gwen sees his jacket on the ground. Spike stands nearby watching. An axe falls onto a tree trunk and blood pours out. A strange noise wakes Gwen and she sees the dorm door being slammed, briefly seeing her mother staring at her. Gwen goes outside and finds Felix, so she follows him. Finney wakes when the phone rings, wakes Ernie, and tells him to protect Gwen while he answers the call. Gwen sees both boys but keeps following Felix. Finney hears the grabber's voice saying he's come back for revenge by destroying everything Finney loves because Finney made him kill his own brother. Ernie reaches the girls' dorm and finds Gwen missing, so he runs to the staff for help. Felix leads Gwen to the mess hall, and she follows a mysterious light into the kitchen. The ovens open revealing huge flames, and falling objects make noise that alerts the adults. Suddenly, the grabber's ghost appears and attacks Gwen with an axe. Gwen tries to protect herself as the grabber uses a belt to trip her and tries to attack again, but she blocks the axe. He tries to choke her as the adults and Ernie rush in and see Gwen struggling on the floor, but cannot see the grabber. Gwen's body is thrown hard against the wall. Barbara screams and Finney rushes to the cabin. Gwen is tossed onto a table, spun in the air, then pushed toward the ovens. Ernie grabs her legs to stop her from being pulled in, and when the adults try to help, objects fly off shelves and attack them. Mustang dodges the objects and helps Ernie pull Gwen back. When Finney arrives, the grabber releases Gwen and disappears. Finney wakes Gwen up, and everyone gathers in the chapel where Gwen tells them about the boys. Armando recognizes the boys' descriptions and says he never stopped looking for them. He shows them a picture from the camps last year with Hope as a counselor, and Finney recognizes the grabber among the staff. Armando explains the man was a maintenance worker nicknamed Wild Bill Hickok because he wore a belt like a gunslinger. Gwen realizes the initials match the letters from her dream and concludes this is where the grabber started killing. Armando explains strange things began 4 years ago, and Finney points out that's when he killed the grabber, meaning his spirit was set free to return. Gwen thinks the grabber draws power from his victims' fear because their spirits aren't at rest. The group decides to find the boys' bodies to set them free. Police never searched the lake because it was frozen, but Armando remembers Bill had ice fishing equipment to cut holes in the ice. They agree to search the lake the next morning. Later, Armando goes to his office and hears a strange noise. He sees a snowman outside but thinks Mustang made it. His radio plays static, and he hears the grabber's voice saying he made him kill his brother. Armando says he can't keep the boys forever. The lights go out. Armando grabs a flashlight and hears a loud thud. When he turns around, he sees the grabber's mask made of blood and snow pressed to the window. The voice says he wants to hurt him. Armando replies they'll get the boys back, calling him Bill, and the grabber angrily says that's not his name, pounds on the window, then disappears. The next morning, the group searches the entire lake, but sadly finds nothing. That evening, Finney and Ernie tell Gwen they'll take turns watching her while she sleeps. That night, Gwen dreams about a paperboy named Billy. While Billy delivers newspapers, the grabber kidnaps him in his black van, revealed to be the grabber's first victim in town. Hope sees this in her own dreams, recognizing the grabber as Wild Bill from camp. In the real world, Gwen starts sleepwalking, but Ernie wakes her and sends her back to bed. The dream continues with Gwen watching Hope leave her bed and following her to the grabber's house. Hope finds a child locked in the cellar and tries to call the police, but the young grabber catches her and pulls her into his van. The ghostly grabber appears and forces Gwen into the truck too, telling her he brought her as a kindness to know the truth before the end. The van stops at Gwen's home, and she must witness her mother's body hanging in the garage. It turns out Hope did not die by suicide, but was killed by the grabber who made it look like she did. Gwen cries as Terrence finds Hope's body and breaks down. When the grabber takes out his axe, Gwen runs through the house and up the stairs, ending up in the grabber's cellar. The black phone rings and Gwen answers to hear Felix telling her to hide. She rushes to the bathroom, finds a hole in the wall, crawls through to a door and pounds on it, but it won't open. The grabber slashes her arm with the axe, and Gwen starts bleeding in real life too. Ernie notices the bleeding and warns the others, but they can't wake her. Eventually, Gwen manages to open the door and comes out to find Felix, who closes the door behind her while she runs toward the lake. As she runs, she hears her friends calling her name in the real world. Meanwhile, Armando is still searching the lake and finally finds Felix's body, starting to break the ice to recover it. In Gwen's dream, a pay phone appears next to her and rings. She answers and hears the grabber say he must defend himself against those who try to take his power. The grabber appears behind Armando in real life and begins breaking the ice as well. Gwen wants to help but can't get out of the phone booth. The ice breaks and Armando falls into the freezing water. When he tries to climb out, the grabber pushes him back down. As Gwen punches the phone booth door in her dream, she also hits Finney in the real world. The grabber smashes the booth glass and uses the phone cord to choke Gwen, throwing her around and spinning her like a top. Her body in the real world also spins violently with blood everywhere before the boys manage to hold her down. Mustang throws cold water on her face, but she doesn't wake. The group shouts for Gwen to fight back. In her dream, Gwen hears their voices on the phone and focuses until the phone booth explodes, throwing the grabber away. Gwen realizes she has power in her dream too, so she headbutts the grabber before finally waking up. Everyone rushes to the lake and rescues Armando just in time. He confirms he found Felix's body, and the group agrees to come back the next day to search for the other two boys. When they return to camp, they're surprised to see Terrence arrive in the snowplow. Finney is ready to leave, but Gwen refuses because she wants to finish what they started. An argument breaks out and Gwen calls out both men for ignoring their trauma instead of facing it. She also reveals what really happened to Hope, convincing them all to stay. The group spends the next day searching but finds nothing. Suddenly, Gwen falls asleep again. In her dream, the grabber appears skating on the lake. Gwen tries to run away but falls into a hole in the ice, and her real body gets wet as well. The grabber attacks Kenneth with an axe and drags him across the frozen lake in both the dream and real world. Kenneth's body crashes into Barbara, making her fall and smash her face on the ice. The grabber continues attacking both with the axe. Underwater in the dream, Gwen sees some barrels, kicks them open, and finally finds the last two boys' bodies inside. The grabber starts smashing the ice around the hole, and the rescue cable falls in. Then the grabber jumps and puts his belt around Finney's neck, trying to choke him. Finney's parent jumps into the water and helps Gwen bring the barrels to the surface, while Finney pushes the grabber off. Gwen starts praying, which finally sets the boys' souls free. In the dream, the boys' bodies emerge from the ice and grab the grabber's ankle, making him trip. The three souls block his way, and Gwen hits his head with the axe before removing his mask. The grabber panics until Finney appears behind him and repeatedly smashes his head on the ice. Gwen chops the grabber's leg off to free him from a skeleton's hand, and together they throw his body into the lake where he finally dies for good as the three boys' spirits push him down. When Gwen wakes up, she kisses Ernie. Later at camp, Armando calls the boys' families to tell them the bodies have been found. Gwen hears the pay phone ringing and answers it. On the other end, she hears her mother congratulating her for saving the kids. Hope assures Gwen the dreams were never a curse and says she loves her children before saying goodbye. Gwen tells Finney the message, and the siblings finally leave with their dad.